Hello everyone and welcome to the Metaverse Professional Development Session. I'm so excited you're here. My name's Luis and I'm going to be guiding you through some of the features that Metaverse has to offer and how we can be using those features in the classroom. My best guess is that you're here because you want to learn Metaverse so that you can teach it to others. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. Before we get started, I recommend you download this slideshow and create an account in the Metaverse Studio so that you can build along with this video. Finally, you'll want the Metaverse app downloaded on your mobile device so that you can test out your experience at the end of the session. If you haven't done so, please pause the video and take a second to download these materials, or feel free to watch along with this video presentation. Alright, let's dive right in. So what is Metaverse? Metaverse is a platform that makes it easy to create augmented reality and interactive experiences. I recommend that you check out these links below because there are some cool examples of how Metaverse is being used. And we also have a video about what teachers think of Metaverse so far. So you're probably wondering, why even use Metaverse? Is it something that's going to help my classroom? And the short answer is yes. Metaverse is used to strengthen student digital literacy, creativity, and logical thinking. It has been shown to increase student engagement and has students take ownership of their learning. And it introduces computer science skills to students in any subject and any grade level. So what are we actually going to be learning today in this session? Well, we're going to learn some simple facts about Metaverse. We're going to learn what we can actually make in the Metaverse Studio. We're going to have some examples of projects from other teachers that you can scan on your mobile device and view within the Metaverse mobile app. And then we're going to build an experience for ourselves, and you're going to follow along with me as we build out this experience. Lastly, we're going to look at some other experience builds and see how they're built, and I'm going to explain to you how to think about Metaverse projects at a higher level. So what is Metaverse? Well, we talked about this a little earlier. Metaverse is a platform that makes it easy to create augmented reality and interactive content. And here's some general statistics about our platform so far. We have over 165,000 experiences created so far. Metaverse has been used across all subjects and all grade levels, and it's currently used in 179 countries around the world. Before we move on, I also want to mention Metaverse is 100% free to use. It costs nothing to create an account, it costs nothing to build experiences, and it costs nothing to view those experiences and share them with the world. So how is Metaverse used in schools? Well, the answer is it really depends on the grade level. I've broken it down into elementary, middle school, and high school so that you can see the differences below. We'll start off with elementary. Here, the teacher usually creates the experience for students to view in an activity that lasts about 5 to 30 minutes long. In middle school, experiences are created by the teacher or the student, and students can build an experience and learn from each other by testing their experiences in class. The building activities are usually an hour long. Finally, in high school, experiences are usually created by the student as a project to demonstrate their understanding of a different subject material. Projects can range from one class period to multiple weeks, and it really depends on how large of a project you'd like the students to create. So what can you make in Metaverse? Well, the answer is a lot of stuff. I've enumerated some of the examples of how Metaverse is being used. This includes different types of questions for interactive quizzes, 360 videos for your own DIY expeditions, media walls that incorporate text and video and photo responses, make polls for your classroom, tell interactive stories, make puzzles, use Google Vision. I mean, there's just a lot of different things, and this doesn't even cover all of the different experiences that you can make in Metaverse. The truth is, Metaverse experiences are limited to your own imagination because you are the person creating the experience. You're the person that's getting all of the components and piecing them together, so the possibilities are endless. So let me take a second to give you a high-level overview of how creation in the Metaverse Studio works. First, you click Create Experience to create a new experience. Then you click on Add New to add new visual and logic elements to your experience. You link all of these elements together using transitions. You publish by clicking on Publish. and then you scan the QR code on your mobile device to view the experience. At its core, this is the creation cycle for all experiences created in Metaverse, and it's actually pretty exciting to see all of these steps in action. So before we dive into real examples of Metaverse experiences being used in the classroom, I want to take a second and highlight what teachers have been saying about Metaverse. We've been keeping a blog of teacher posts, and they've been sharing their ideas, their projects, how they've been using Metaverse, and what their thoughts are on the platform, and it's really exciting to get this sort of feedback. I'm going to include the link to our Medium blog in the YouTube description below. Okay, so in a second, you're going to be following along with me, and we're actually going to be building an experience together. But for now, I've included 6 examples of real experiences being used in the classroom, and I want you to take a second, pause the video, and use the Metaverse mobile app to scan these experiences so that you can know what they look like in the Metaverse mobile app. Okay, what'd you think? It's pretty cool, right? If you want to check out the experience builds, these are actually all copies of experiences, so feel free to click on the QR code from this slideshow presentation to check out the actual experience in the Metaverse Studio, make a copy, and see how it's built. This will make more sense at the end of the section. I don't expect you to do this right now, but if you're comfortable with Metaverse currently, this is a good opportunity to see experience builds. Let's move on to the next section where we're going to be building our own Metaverse experience. Alright, I'm super excited to begin building a Metaverse experience along with you. Feel free to pause and unpause the video as needed. There's no rush since you're watching a video and building along with me. So we're going to be making one single experience, and in this experience we'll be learning about features that we use in order to create a multiple choice question, a free response question, a selfie photo wall, and an AR 360 video portal. Hopefully by the end you'll have the skills necessary to continue building onto this experience, maybe even creating your own, using these skills to remix other experiences and incorporating features that maybe we didn't talk about in this session. Okay, so let's actually dive in and begin building our very first experience. When you first create an account in the Metaverse Studio, you're going to be taken to the dashboard page. Let me switch over to my window and show you. So this is the dashboard page. You'll be taken to My Experiences, and this area shows all of the experiences that you've created so far. Yours will probably be empty since you haven't created any experiences yet, but they'll get filled up soon enough. On the top, you can access our Medium blog, which I was talking about earlier in our session. You can view tutorials and learn about more features that Metaverse has to offer. Check out your account information. All this shows is your username, and create an experience here at the top right. And we're going to be clicking that in just a second. On the left-hand side, you can search for any experience in the Metaverse Studio. You can view all of the experiences that you've created. We're on this page currently. You can see your bookmarked experiences and view the walls and polls that you've created. And lastly, you can discover new experiences which we've curated from the pool of 165,000 experiences created in Metaverse. So the first thing you're going to do is click on Create Experience at the top right of your dashboard page to create a new experience. You'll be taken to this new page, which we call the Experience Storyboard. So let's go ahead and do that. From our dashboard, we're going to go to the top right and click Create Experience. Now we're in the storyboard page and we can begin building our experience. So you'll notice that the first thing that appears is this gearbox and a card. And this card is what we call our character scene. This is the most basic kind of scene in Metaverse, and you'll want to become familiar with this type of scene. So in our storyboard, a character scene is made up of 3 main parts. We've got a place to put dialogue, we've got a place to select a character, and a place to add buttons. You can ignore these 2 for now. We'll be exploring those a little bit later. So I'm going to click on this circle and add a character to our scene. Now you have several different options here. We have thousands of characters to choose from, and they range from 2D characters to 3D characters. We have a few animated 3D characters and a whole pool of GIFs provided by JiffyCat. Also on the top, you can search for specific characters or upload your own character by clicking on Add Character here on the top right. I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm going to use this bored cat character. Next up, we're going to add some dialogue. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click up here where this text bubble is, and I'm just going to type something simple like hello world. We'll add a little smiley face in there just for good measure. Lastly, we're going to add a button, and to do that, we're going to click on the button area down here. So let's go ahead and click that. You can add multiple buttons, and you can delete buttons by right-clicking on them and selecting delete. For this character scene, I'm just going to have one button. You'll also notice that configuration options will change in the right-hand menu depending on what we click on in our storyboard. And this is true of any scene and any block used in Metaverse. So I'm going to click on the button, and I'm just going to add some text here that says next. So the next skill that you're going to need to learn is how to add new elements to the storyboard. To do this, all we're going to do is click on Add New at the top right of our storyboard. And what we're going to be doing for our experience specifically is adding another character scene to our storyboard. Let's go ahead and do that. Back in the Metaverse Studio, we're going to click on Add New, and then we're going to select our character scene. It's the very first scene. You'll notice that another scene similar to the last one has appeared in our storyboard. Okay, so you may have noticed that when you clicked on Add New, there were a lot of different things that you could add to your storyboard. So I want to explain something important really quick. Scenes are the visual elements of an experience. This is what the user actually sees on their screen. Blocks are logic elements of an experience. These perform background functions within the experience itself. If that doesn't make sense right now, don't worry, we're going to be exploring both of these a little bit later in this session. So for now, let's just move on and continue building our experience. Let's go ahead and configure scene 2 in our experience. We're going to add some different text. We're going to change the character by clicking on the pencil icon from the character area, and then we're going to add 4 buttons. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So in my storyboard, I'm going to add some text. Please select an option. We're going to add 4 buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to change our character by clicking on the character and then clicking on the pencil icon. And I'm going to use this smiling face with heart eyes. And then we're going to type our options in each of these sections. So let's click on the first button. We'll type in multiple choice. Second one, we'll type free response. Third one, we will type smile wall. And fourth one, we will type AR portal. The next step is to actually link these two scenes up. So you'll notice that there are some orange bubbles. Let me go back into the studio here. You'll notice that there are these orange bubbles appearing next to the buttons. And what this means is that these two scenes are not actually linked up together. In order to link the scenes together, all we have to do is click on the button and we'll find transition controls in the right-hand menu here. Now you can go into this drop down and select your scene, but I want to show you an easier way to transition. What we're going to do is click on this pointer and then click on the scene we want to transition to. Once we click on that scene, you'll notice a link has been formed in between these two scenes. Now I want to reiterate, All scenes and blocks require transitions. They are super important, and a lot of times, if you find that your experience isn't going on to the next scene, it's most likely because you haven't set a transition for it. Okay, so far, we've learned how to add scenes to the storyboard, we've learned how to configure text, characters, and buttons within a character scene, and we've learned how to link scenes together using transitions. So, I want to give you a little challenge. We're going to make a multiple choice question. You are going to add 3 character scenes to the storyboard, and then you're going to configure the scenes using transitions, text, characters, and buttons to create a multiple choice question. Go ahead and pause the video and then unpause when you're ready to see how it's done. Alright, how did you do? I hope it was pretty easy. Let's take a look at the next slide. So here is the basic configuration of how we're going to be building this. We're going to add a scene that asks a question and has multiple buttons for answer choices. We're going to add a scene for the correct answer and a scene for the incorrect answer. And then for each button, we're going to link the correct answer to the correct scene and the 3 incorrect answers to the incorrect scene. Another thing I'm going to show you is you can actually add a try again button so that it allows the student to try the question again. Let's go ahead and build that really quick. We'll add a scene here. Let's actually add all 3 scenes at once. There we go. And then what I like to do is click and drag the scene down. So you can see these are stacking. We'll configure our text for each of these. So we'll say question 2 plus 2 equals question mark. We'll have a text that says something like, "You got it correct." And then for the incorrect scene, that is incorrect. Would you like to try again? So now let's add our buttons. 1, 2, 3, 4. For the top one, maybe we'll have 7. We'll have the correct one be the second one. Third one will be something like 3, and the last one maybe 5. And so now we can link our correct answer to our correct scene by clicking on the pointer and clicking on where we want it to go. And let's configure the transitions for the incorrect scene. So 7, click on the pointer, goes to incorrect. 3, click on the pointer, it goes to incorrect. And 5, click on the pointer and it goes to incorrect. Let's also not forget that we need to link our multiple choice option to our multiple choice scene here. And let's go ahead and maybe change these characters up a little bit. So I'm going to continue with this emoji theme for this question. We can go down, we see we have emoji tags here. And I'll scroll down and maybe use this smiling face. For the correct one, let's see if there's a star character we can find. Perfect, we'll use this glowing star. And then for the bottom, let's go back to emojis. Looks like I still had that star in the search bar. And we've got our shocked face, which is perfect for an incorrect scene. Now, lastly, I'm going to add a button down here that says try again. And we will link this back to the question. And you'll see that a link has formed. It can go backwards. And we'll add a button down here that just says something like continue to FRQ. And that's it. Hopefully you were able to do that. If not, that's okay. Hopefully this made sense and you were able to follow along with our experience build. All right, let's continue building our experience. The next thing we're going to be doing is adding a scene background. So what we're going to be doing here is actually changing the scene from displaying in AR mode to displaying in background mode. And this is going to present the scene flat on your mobile device. In order to do this, we're going to click on an empty space in the scene, click on background at the top of the right-hand menu, and then change the background by clicking on the Change Background button. So let's go ahead and dive into our scene and change the background. So following the instructions from the slide, we'll click on an empty space in the scene. We'll change the scene from AR to background, and then we'll click on Change Background. Now from here you can select a background similar to how you would select a character from the character library, and you can use the tags to narrow down your search or just search using the search bar. You can also add your own background by clicking Create Background, and this will allow you to upload an image to use as your background. So I'm going to hop down into gradients, and then maybe I will use this bright pink gradient. Yeah, that's looking real nice. Okay, let's actually change these other two scenes as well, since we want it to feel sort of consistent for this section. So again, we'll click on the scene, and then we'll change it to background, and then we'll click on the Change Background button. For this one, maybe I'll go into Abstract and see if I can find something cool in there. This looks pretty good. We'll use that. And then for the bottom one, we'll do the same thing. Click on the scene, click on the background at the top of the right-hand menu, and then click on Change Background. Let me go into Abstract one more time, and I really like this purple background, so we'll use that. And there you have it. That's how you change the backgrounds. So looking at our experience here, we'll see that these first two scenes will be displayed in AR, augmented reality, and these three scenes will be displayed flat with backgrounds. This allows you to take creative liberties and have the right backgrounds for the right situation in your experience. Another customizable feature in character scenes is that you can change the shape, size, and color of the buttons by going into the response style section of the right-hand menu. Let's go ahead and change the button styles for our question scene. Going back into the studio, we'll zoom in so that we can get a better view of our question. And just like before, we'll click on the character scene, and then we can see the response styles in the right-hand menu. Now for this scene, I'm going to change it to square buttons. I'm going to have them have 2 per column, but if you want more, you can have more per column. And then I'm going to change the colors of the buttons. So I just want just a little bit deeper of a blue, and maybe we'll actually drag this in here and get it just a little bit darker. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay, now let's do the same thing for our other two scenes. So for our correct answer scene, I'm actually going to keep the same button style. We're just going to have a rectangular bar at the bottom, but you can see that the blue is kind of blending in with the blue of the background. So maybe I can find some sort of pink color that will pop off this page a little more. Actually, maybe slightly redder than that. There we go, that's a little closer to the color that fits with that scene. Okay, now the bottom button, we're going to do the same thing. Click on an empty space in the storyboard. We've got our response styles on the right-hand menu, and for this one, I'm going to use a circular button, and then maybe we'll make this orange. There we go, and I'll just keep it like that. That's looking like a really good orange for this scene. So zooming out so that we can see all three scenes, we have now styled our backgrounds and styled our buttons for these scenes. So again, to reiterate, the 3 button styles are square styles, rectangular styles, and circular styles, and all of them look different within the scene. It's really up to you to decide how you want to present the information on your scene, but I like how this turned out, and I hope you like the styles for your experience. Okay, moving on to something a little more complex, we're going to be building a free response question using a text input scene. So let me go back into the studio. We're going to click on the Add New menu, and then we're going to add this text input scene. Now you can see that it used the same styles as the previous scene, and that's okay because we're going to be changing them up a little bit. But first, I want to talk about how the text input scene works. Unlike a character scene where you add buttons, the text input scene actually just has a keyboard at the bottom, and it requires the user to type in a response. So I just clicked on the keyboard, and you can see the configuration options in the right-hand menu. We can change our placeholder text. So maybe we'll change something like type your answer. And you can see that the text has also changed in the preview of the keyboard. We can also change the keyboard to a number pad if we want to. I'm going to stick with the regular text keyboard. We can also determine what the action button says. The action button is just the button used to submit the answer. So I'm going to keep it at next, but you have all these 4 options here. You can hide the text characters being typed by requiring password, but I'm going to leave that open since we want to actually see what we're typing. And then you have your transition controls at the bottom. So let's go ahead and quickly style our scene here. So instead of this shocked face, I'm just going to quickly go into our 2D menu, and we'll just use the mammoth for this one. And then I also want to switch this one back to AR by clicking on the AR background style. Now let's type our question. My question is going to be, the primary colors are red, blue, and what? Okay, there we have our question. Last thing we need to do is add our transition from the previous button. So we'll link that up to the text input scene. So this is the first time we're going to be adding a block, a logic element into our experience. And the block we're going to be using is called check text response. What this block does is it checks the text that was input from the text input scene and then validates that text. You'll be able to determine what you want to search for. So let's explore that a little bit. We'll go into the Add New menu. We'll go into our text section, and then the check text response box is right here. So go ahead and click that and add that to your storyboard. Now I'm just going to drag this down a little bit and make it easier to see, and let's zoom in to just our text input section. Quickly before we forget, let's make sure to link up the scene to the block. So we're just going to do the same thing we did before with scenes. We'll click on the pointer, and then we will click on the text response block. And you'll notice that this has actually been changed from transition to scene to transition to block automatically. Now let's take a look in our check text response block. And you'll see in the right-hand menu, we have a few different options here. The first thing, and probably the most important one, is the text to check for. So we know that our primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. Yellow is the answer that's missing, so we're just going to type yellow into the text to check for area. We can also make the check case sensitive. For example, if we're looking for a name like George Washington, or we're looking for a place like California, we would use this block to make sure that the capitalization is correct in the text. You'll also notice here that this block has 2 transitions, one for on response contains and one for response does not contain. So that brings us to our next challenge for this session. Now what I want you to do is finish this free response question using the skills we just learned with the multiple choice question. You're going to add 2 scenes for correct and incorrect paths, and you're going to link that block up to the correct and incorrect scenes. Take a moment to pause the video and try out the challenge, and then unpause the video when you're ready to see how it's done. All right, how did that one go? Hopefully it wasn't too difficult. Let's go back into our experience and we will finish up this free response question. So I'm gonna add 2 scenes. I didn't tell you which scenes to add, partially because you could add any scenes you'd like, but since we just learned about character scenes for our multiple choice question, I'm going to add 2 character scenes to our storyboard. So there's 1, there's 2. Now let's arrange them a little bit. So our incorrect will go underneath, and this one will be out of the way of the block. Now let me zoom out just a little bit so that you can see. Let's quickly style these scenes really quick by clicking on the characters and clicking the pencil button. I'm going to go into the animal section and see what we find. Scroll down, we'll use this Doge character. It's kind of funny for correct answers, and we'll say, "You got it correct." And then for the incorrect scene, maybe we'll find some other variation of a dog, and it looks like this dog with the shoe is good for incorrect answer. We'll say something like, "That is incorrect. Would you like to try again?" And just like the multiple choice question, we'll add a button here that says try again, and we'll link that back to our question. And so now it comes time to add transitions for our block here. So let's click on the block. Now what you should have done here is on response contains means that it was a success. It did find that text. So we're going to transition that one to our correct scene. For on response does not contain means it was a failure. It did not find the text, so that should go to the incorrect scene. And that was the challenge. Hopefully you were able to get through it. Now the last thing we need to do is just add a button here for the correct answer, and we'll say something like continue to media walls, and maybe we'll style these buttons really quickly since I don't want to use the default Metaverse blue. So let's click on an empty space in the scene. Maybe we'll go with some sort of deep purple here. Make that just a little darker, perfect. And maybe for the bottom one, we'll make it a red color and we'll change it to a square-ish button. Great. So we have now finished our free response question. So that means it's time to pat yourself on the back because you just configured your very first code block. Yep, it was that easy, and all code blocks work in a similar way. You add the block to your experience, you click on the block, and then you use the right-hand menu to configure the block. Congratulations, now it's time to move on to media walls. So in this section, we're going to be building a selfie wall using the media walls feature in Metaverse. This is going to use a camera scene. So let's go ahead and add a camera scene and we'll explore the functions that a camera scene has. Just as an optional addition, I'm also going to add a character scene to create a separation between the free response section and the media walls section. So let's go into the studio. I will add a new character scene, and we're going to configure this character scene really quick. I'm going to be searching for camera since we're going to be taking a photo, and we'll see what comes up. It looks like this Polaroid camera will do great. Let's change this to a background, and we'll select a background. We'll go into abstract and see if we can find something cool. I like this tricolor background, looks really nice. And now let's type some text. We'll say something like, time for a selfie. Show everyone your wonderful smile. We'll add a little smiley face. Now let's link the previous scene to our current scene, and we will add a button. That button will say something like, take selfie, and let's quickly style the button. We'll maybe make this just a slightly darker blue. Perfect, and we'll make it a square button. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and add our camera scene. We'll click on Add New again, and we will click on Camera Scene. So that's going to add our camera scene. Let's scroll to the right a little bit. Maybe we'll zoom in just slightly. There we go. And let's link up this character scene to the camera scene. Great. So if we click on camera scene, we'll see some unique configurations in the right-hand menu. First, let's look at the capture settings. You can choose from the front-facing or rear-facing camera. So we're going to be taking a selfie, so we're going to be using the front-facing camera. You can choose between photo and video. Since it's just a selfie image, I'm going to go photo only. You can also add a frame URL from an image hosted site like Imager, but we're not going to do that, so I'm just going to close that option. And then you have your transition controls. And that's the basics of the camera scene here. So now the next thing to do is add a media wall scene. And this is where we're going to be displaying all of the images, all of the selfies that people take. And it's a really fun activity for you to see your picture along with other pictures that people have posted. Let's go ahead and go back into our studio and we will explore media wall configurations. We'll click on Add New. We'll click on the wall scene and add that. And I'm just going to create a slight separation here. And now let's look at media walls. So you'll notice that we don't have any sort of wall selected here. And that's because we need to actually create a new media wall. Now, if you have already created a wall, you can go to select a wall and see all of the different walls that you've made. But since we're going to be creating a new wall, we're actually going to click on New here. Then all we need to do is add a name to our media wall and give our media wall a short description, and we'll click on Create Wall to create the new media wall. Back in the studio, we'll give our wall a name. I'll call this one my super selfie wall, and our short description will be show everyone your wonderful smile. Now we're all done setting up the wall. Let's go ahead and click Create Wall to actually create the wall. The next thing we're going to be doing is adding a Save to Wall block from the Walls section. So back in the storyboard, we'll click on Add New, and then we'll go to the Walls section. It's the only block in the Walls section, so it should be pretty easy to find. Let's click on it and add it to our storyboard, and we'll just drag this right in between the camera scene and the wall scene. Now we'll click on the camera scene, we will transition that scene to the Save to Wall block, and then we'll click on the block, and the transitions are at the bottom. We will link that up to our media wall scene. So you'll notice that we actually need to select the wall in the block as well. It is very important to make sure that you have the wall selected in both the wall scene and in the Save to Wall block. So let's go ahead and do that. I will click on the selector, we'll go all the way down to the bottom, and there we have my super selfie wall. And that's it, that's all it took. Congrats, you just made your very own media wall. Now here is a fun fact for you. You don't always need to record photos or videos to the wall. You can also record text to the wall simply by linking up a text input scene to the Save to Wall block rather than a camera scene. So the last thing we're going to be doing in our experience is building an AR portal. It's very easy. All we have to do is add an AR portal. Now feel free to use either the photo or the video portal. They both work in the exact same way. Let's go to the studio. I'm going to click Add New, and then I am going to add a video portal scene. There we go, we can see the portal scene here. Now you may have noticed that we haven't selected a photo or video in our portal scene yet, and we're going to do that by clicking on Search in the right-hand menu. But I also want to talk about the other two things that you can do to display 360 as an AR portal. You can click on Upload to upload your own 360 photo or video. One thing you want to make sure is that the video is a monoscopic 360 photo or video, otherwise it won't render properly. The other thing you can do is you can add a video URL from a hosted video. Keep in mind, 360 videos from YouTube will not render in Metaverse at this time. So if you try to enter a 360 video from YouTube, it will not show up in Metaverse at this time. Let's jump back to the storyboard. We're going to link up our media wall really quick. There we go. And then we're going to click on the portal scene and we're going to search for a 360 portal by clicking on the search button. Now you can search for a 360 video by using the search bar here at the top. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll through, find something that looks cool. I'm going to click on it, and then you'll notice that a preview of the 360 video has appeared in our scene. If you don't see a preview show up, don't worry. Sometimes previews don't show up. Just make sure you test it and make sure it's working. Depending on your network and your Wi-Fi, you may also experience some slight loading times for 360 videos because it tends to be a larger sized file. And that's it. That is a sweet AR portal you just made, and I can't wait until you see it in action by testing your experience. Congrats, that's all it takes to make a 360 portal. So now all we have to do is add some final touches to our experience, and what better way to do that than by giving you a final challenge. So in your final challenge, you're going to take everything we've learned so far, and you're going to add a final character scene with a button that is set to end the experience. You're also going to fix buttons that are missing transitions in our experience. There's a hint in this slide, so go ahead, take a moment, pause the video, complete the challenge, and then unpause it when you're ready to see how it's done. Alright, how did that go? Hopefully it was not too difficult. Let's go ahead and complete the challenge. Let's hop back into the studio and add our final character scene first. So we'll go into the add new menu, we'll add a character scene, and let's configure it, make it look all nice. We want to make sure that it's set to background. We'll want to search for something that says bye or see you later or something like that. And this looks like a really fun GIF. We're going to use that one. Now let's select a background. I'm going to hop into abstract, and then we're going to use this cool purple-red background. So that's looking real nice. Let's make sure to link up our portal scene to our final scene. In this one, I'm not going to include any dialogue, and that's totally fine, but I'm going to add a button here at the bottom. It's going to say end experience. And then I actually didn't show you this earlier. I was hoping you were able to figure it out on your own, but if you look at the transition controls, you'll see several different options here, and we're going to set it to end experience. Let's style our button by clicking on the empty space in our storyboard. We'll make this button slightly red to match. Maybe we'll actually have it be a little bit more purple. And that's looking pretty nice. We'll make it square. And now we have our final scene set up. So the other part of the challenge is linking up the missing transitions. So I don't know if you noticed this, but I did this on purpose because I wanted you to figure it out. I left these 3 buttons unlinked in the experience. So what that means is if somebody tested your experience and tapped on these buttons, absolutely nothing would happen. Now let me zoom out and just rearrange the storyboard a little bit so that it's easier to see. I'm going to move the AR portal down. I'm going to move the final scene down, and I'm going to scroll back. There we go. We can see our entire experience. So I know it's a little difficult to see the buttons, but you can see that we can click on each button. You'll see this one says free response, and we know that the free response button should link to the free response question. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to link it to the beginning of our free response question. The smile wall is going to go to the selfie wall we made, so we're going to do the same thing. Click on the pointer, and then click on the camera character scene, which starts the smile wall, and then we're going to click on the AR portal button and do the same thing. Link it to the AR portal down here. So here is a little bit of a closer look at what we just did in the storyboard. We added a new character scene, and in the button, we set the button to end experience. Then we moved some stuff around in our storyboard and linked the last 3 buttons to the beginning of each of our sections in the experience. I hope that you were able to complete the challenge, and now let's move on. So we have completely finished building our experience, and now it's time to make that experience live for the world to see. In order to do this, all we have to do is click on Publish at the top right of the storyboard. So let's go ahead back into our storyboard and do that. I'm going to click Publish, and we'll be taken to our Publish menu. In the Publish menu, all we need to do is name our experience and give it a short description. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll call this My First Experience. And our description will be something like, I hope you enjoy it. Now you may have noticed that this isn't the only tab on the left. We see a General tab and an Advanced tab. Let's quickly look at the Advanced tab just so you know what's going on there. So in the Advanced tab, there are two major sections. There's the Discovery section that decides how people can view your experience. You can choose for it to be public, part of a group, or unlisted. And then the Cloning section determines whether or not you want to allow people to make copies of your experiences. I tend to always leave my experiences public, and I allow cloning because I want people to remix my experiences. Finally, you'll click on Publish when you're ready to make your changes live. So let's go ahead and do that. Just double checking the Advanced section. I want mine to be public, so I'll leave it public, and I want to allow cloning, so I will leave Allow Cloning turned on. Then let's publish our experience. Now our experience is published and ready for the world to see. You'll be taken to this page, which we call the Share page, and it's where you'll find all of the different ways that people can open up your experience. First of all, they can scan the QR code in the Metaverse mobile app. In fact, if you'd like, you can actually scan this QR code that's being presented on my screen to view the experience that I just made. You can also use the share link that's directly under the QR code and send that link via Facebook, Twitter, email, anywhere online to give easy access to your experience in the Metaverse mobile app. By tapping on this link while you're on a mobile device, it will instantly take you to the experience within the Metaverse mobile app. Lastly, underneath the share link is the studio link, which you can use to share your studio build with other people in the Metaverse studio. What that means is if you want somebody to copy your experience and remix it, or maybe you need to use the help chat line and you want to send them your experience, you would use the Experience Studio link. So now it's time to celebrate. You just created and published your very first Metaverse experience. It's time to show your colleagues your experience by sending them the share link or the QR code, having them look at it, and then telling them about how easy it was to create in Metaverse. Before we wrap things up in this session, I want to let you know that there's even more to explore in Metaverse. In fact, we just scratched the surface, and I just showed you a few key features that I think would be useful to you in the classroom. However, this is a list of all of the other features that we did not cover in Metaverse. If you're curious about any of these features, I recommend you check out our Learn page from the Metaverse Studio or check out our YouTube tutorials. They're a great resource to help learn and continue building your Metaverse knowledge. I've linked the YouTube tutorial page in this slideshow, so feel free to click that link and learn about all the other features that Metaverse has to offer. In this last section, I want to try to teach you to think about Metaverse experiences at a higher level. We just learned some basic patterns that you can use in those Metaverse experiences, and now it's time to take a look at the experience as a whole and what patterns are being used in those experiences. We're going to start off by exploring a very simple experience, and then we're going to take a look at some more complex experiences. One thing I'm going to be showing you is how to make a copy of the experience so that you can actually go in and see how the experience was built. First, let's take a quick look at Ocean Dive Portal. This was one of the experiences that I showed you at the beginning of the session, and it actually uses the exact same patterns that we learned when building our own experience. Now I'm going to quickly show you how to make a copy of this experience, and the first thing you're going to do is click on this studio link right here. This will take you to the link within the studio so that you can make a copy. Once you're in the studio, you're going to want to click on the three dots here on the right, and then you're going to click on Clone Experience. This will create a clone of the experience for you to remix for your own purposes. Now let's go ahead and take a look at how this experience was built. So as you can see, it uses very similar patterns to what we explored in our experience. It uses a character scene, it uses an AR portal, and it uses a free response question pattern. So here's the breakdown. They use a character scene to introduce the concept of the ocean dive. Then they use an AR portal in order to take them into the middle of the ocean via a 360 video portal. Lastly, they ask a free response question based off of the video displayed in the AR portal. And that's basically it for an experience like this. Now, your experiences don't have to be complex in order to be immersive, and I think this ocean dive portal is a perfect example of just that. The next experience I want to show you is a 5-question multiple choice template that an 8th grade teacher made for his class. Go ahead, take a second, copy this experience so that you can view it on your end. I'm not going to be diving deep into it. I just want to show you the high-level overview of the experience so that you can start thinking about experiences at a higher level. This experience in particular uses a multiple choice question pattern similar to the one we learned in our experience. It uses property blocks, which we didn't cover in this session, but there's a tutorial linked on this slide. And it also uses a give item scene, which we also didn't learn about. I recommend you check out these tutorials as well, as they'll help you better understand this experience as a whole. So now let's take a quick look at the entire experience build. I've annotated it so you can get a better idea of the thought process behind building this experience. We first start off with an intro scene. This is very similar to all the experiences we've seen so far, and we like to make use of that character scene to orient people to the Metaverse experience. Next, we're using a property block. Now in this experience, the teacher used property blocks to track a score within this 5-question multiple choice quiz. Rather than having a correct scene, they decided to link to this block and add a point for a correct answer. Now you'll notice that these multiple choice questions are stacked vertically, and there are 5 of them. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. Each multiple choice question pattern still has 2 branching paths, one for the correct scene that goes to the increment property block in order to add a point, and the other linking directly to the answer scene. You'll notice that there's some text here highlighted in red, and this is actually displaying the amount of points that a student has gained overall in the quiz so far. Now this may seem a little confusing at first. I recommend you go back a slide and check out the tutorial so that you know about these property blocks. For now, all you have to understand is that these property blocks reset the score, add points to the score, and then check the score. So you'll see in number 4, we actually run a check to see if the students got 100% on their quiz. And if they did, we award them with an item. If they didn't get 100%, they just simply go to the end scene, and that is the end of the experience. Hopefully this made sense and you're able to understand that a Metaverse experience is just made of different patterns of scenes and blocks. The next experience we're going to be looking at is a little complex, so I don't expect you to get it right off the bat. But I definitely recommend that you make a copy of it and check out the contents because it's pretty neat. So this third and final experience I'm going to show you is a digital breakout activity called Escape the Zombies. Feel free to scan the QR code to check it out and then make a studio link so you can see the actual build. It's a really impressive build and it showcases some of the ways that you can customize your experience and make it your own. This experience in particular uses that free response question pattern that we explored in our own experience. It also uses a selfie photo wall, and then it uses those property blocks and item scenes which we saw in the last experience breakdown. Let's take a look at this experience, and again, I don't expect you to get this right away, but I recommend you look at this experience in your own studio and see how it's built based off of the annotations in the next slide. So yes, this looks a little bit complex, but when we break it down into different patterns, we can start to see how this Metaverse experience works as a whole. And a lot of it is actually just building off of what we already know. The beginning has 2 intro scenes to set up the story in this game. The idea is you have 3 locks that you have to open, and the only way that you can unlock those locks is by answering English grammar questions. After the intro scenes, we have this section that uses property blocks to select a team name. You can see that there are 4 options for team names, and there are 4 property blocks that set the property for the team name that the student chooses. This is sort of superfluous when it comes to the actual functionality of the experience, but it's a nice touch because it makes the experience more interactive, and you want to push for more interactivity rather than passive viewing when creating experiences. This third section up here is a set of 4 blocks that actually resets all the properties in the game. You need these blocks at the beginning of a game like this because you're going to be tracking a lot of different data points, and it's just easier if you set them all back to their original values. Right after that, we have our main menu, which displays the 3 locks that they need to unlock. Then underneath, after they select the path, they use these same property blocks to check and see if the question has already been answered. If it's been answered, they're taken to a scene that says, "This has already been unlocked to move on to the next question." After that, we have our pattern of free response questions. We're using those same check text response blocks, and they still have branching paths. And just like the previous example, they're using that same pattern where if they get the question correct, they increment the property, aka unlocking the lock. If they get the question incorrect, they're taken to a scene down here that tells them their answer was incorrect, at which point they're linked back to the main menu. So after all of these questions have been answered, there's a 4th button on here that takes them to a second check. Now what this check does is it determines whether or not all 3 locks have been unlocked. If the 3 locks have been unlocked, then they're taken to the next section, and if not, then they're taken back to the main menu. The 8th section is just a story section that uses a character scene and an item scene in order to award an item, just like the last game we viewed. Right after that, they're taken to a photo wall, which we already know how to make, and then there's a final scene here, just like we created in our experience. So you can sort of see a lot of these same patterns emerging in these experiences, but it really comes down to the way that the creator chooses to display these patterns. All of these experiences feel totally different, even though they're using very similar patterns. I hope I didn't confuse you with this, but I did want to show you a more complex experience so that you can sort of think about experiences at a higher level and not at the scene and block level. You should be thinking about what patterns of scenes and blocks should I be using in order to achieve what I want to achieve in an experience. So you made it this far. I just want to take a moment to congratulate you on completing the official Metaverse Professional Development session. I hope you learned something valuable. At any time, if you have any questions, feel free to email me directly. My email is luis@gometa.io. I hope that there were definitely lessons that you could take away and use in your own classroom, and I would love to hear about experiences that you remixed or that you created on your own. It's very exciting to get this sort of feedback and to see what people are creating, and who knows, it may even make it on our blog. Thank you so much for joining me in this Metaverse Professional Development session, and I will see you next time.